Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I wanted to do a video here talking about some vehicles that just got absolutely annihilated because of the research changes. And I understand a lot of vehicles have got a lot easier to grind, which is fantastic. You know, obviously that's what we want, but many other vehicles have lost their usability because of some rank changes and also some folder changes, and that kind of sucks. So why not highlight them, and why not kind of look for some more solutions? Overall, the research changes have been incredibly positive. It's lovely to see a bunch of vehicles come to light, and after the BR changes as well, many others have kind of come to, well, they're kind of usable now when previously they weren't. But there are always losers in changes like this, and unfortunately, some of them are some of my favorites. At the same time, unfortunately, I won't be able to get kind of video footage of each of them because you play them in specific ways, and they're not always the most savory. So instead, I'll show images and also some decent gameplay of the last few days behind. Let's get into it. The first vehicles are the SB2Cs for the Americans. The SB2C1C and SB2C4 are now rank 2 instead of rank 3. The SB2C4 specifically was a fantastic vehicle to run at 3.7, and since it was a rank 3, you could do dailies, you could do specials, and also events with it. It was fantastic at ground pounding when it came to aerialistic, air arcade, and even naval, and in ground as well, it was able to bring along ordnance, which would be fantastic too. The reason why it's going to be so much worse now is even though it keeps its bomber airborne, even though this thing is technically a fighter, the main issue with it is it won't be able to do stuff like the second set of dailies and also specials on the day, which just completely sucks since it was one of my go-to vehicles for one of the easiest special tasks that exists, mass destruction, which is just destroying ground targets in aerialistic or air arcade with a bomber. So now, we'll have to find something else. Luckily though, for the vehicle, the SB2C5, for the French, even though it's the same BR as the SB2C4, is actually still at rank 3. So you can just use that one if you want. The matchmaking isn't as nice. You'll face way more Wyverns and way more strike aircraft, but at the same time, it'll still get the job done. So a little bit of kind of niceness, especially since you can still bring those 50 cal pods, meaning that you have the 20s and 50s, which can kill the vast majority of ground targets that are in the game. I just wish that, as we've talked about previously, that all of the tech trees were treated the same and all of them were given the same ranks, even if some of them were negative. Overall, it would make the game feel a little bit more equal, and I think most people would agree. The next set of vehicles are the Vautours. Now there is one Vautour which is still at rank 5, that's the Interceptor Vautour for France, but also it's the weakest Vautour out of the bunch. All of the other ones have gone up to rank 6, including the 2 French ones in the tech tree, the 2 premiums, and also the Israeli Vautours that are at rank 6 as well. So even though they folded the Israeli Vautours and folded some of the French Vautours, they have effectively made them completely useless. The Vautour pre-update had one role: bomb bases, because it got an air spawn, because it was at rank 5, and a lot of its predators that made it completely useless previously had got grounded because they lost their air spawn. Stuff like the F-105, stuff like the Harrier, even things like the Yak-38 could no longer easily hunt the Vautour, meaning that you could get 1 to 2, even sometimes 3 bases if somebody was helping you out, you know, and the fact that the Vautour with weapon selection could get 2 full bases by itself was just fantastic, and it made doing tasks such as, you know, bombing bases like for big game and dailies and specials super easy to do. And it also meant that you could go after AIs at the same time because of the offensive armament a lot of these Vautours had. But now that they're at rank 6, they're now in the same position they were previously, where a lot of vehicles will just annihilate it. Because at rank 6, you get a ground spawn. You don't get an air spawn anymore with the Vautour, so if you haven't grounded out now, it's just going to be completely useless. And you know how I know this? Go and ask the Buccaneer pilots how they're doing right now. Basically, all you can do with the Buccaneer is you can take off, go to the edge of the map and then bomb bases and then go to the back. You have to play so passively with the vehicles to make them completely useful. So the Votors are just, once again, in the bin. They were some of the worst jets in the game because of their maneuverability, because everything else got on air spawn, and now they are the worst jets in the game again because they don't get an air spawn. It sucks for them. It really does. The F6F5 Hellcat has also lost its use as well. These vehicles used to be at rank 3, so you could run them with some really nice lineups. Once again, not just in ground, but also in naval. In naval for America, there is a fantastic coastal lineup at 3-0. Basically, a bunch of the PT boats, the Thunderbolt, then the PT565, the PT59, and then you even have stuff like the Candid at 3-3 and the Asheville, and even the Kim Kui that they brought in as well, and the PT810, which was super fun to play. The Candid is incredibly broken right now, by the way. But back to the point. The Hellcats have been reduced to rank 2, so now you cannot use them to be able to torpedo destroyers in those PT boats. You cannot use them to be able to grind daily specials or events, so now they're just kind of a worthless vehicle, which sucks because they fit that area so well, and because now they've been moved down, it just completely sucks for them. They're actually folded weirdly as well now. The American one is folded with the Wildcats, the F4F3, the F4F4, and now the F6F5 in a very weird setup, where the French one is, of course, just by itself, just before the MB157, which even though it's exactly the same BR as the F6F5, still doesn't get put to rank 2. The F6F5 being at rank 2 because in arcade it's 3-0, but with the MB157 it's 3-3, and so therefore it stays at rank 3. It just sucks for the vehicle, and it just feels really, really bad. So I'm hoping that they change this decision just because that lineup for America is just so fun. And if France ever gets the coastal tree that I'm sure they will eventually, they won't be able to use the Hellcat in for events or for dailies or specials or anything. It just sucks. And the Hellcat is a good vehicle. I don't really understand why it's as low a BR as it was. It used to be a completely broken vehicle, but then they changed its flight model, and now you have to play it accordingly. But it still has great ordnance. They even added bombs to it over the last period of time, and it would just be nice just to see it at a slightly higher BR. The vehicle gets 2 1000s for God's sake. And also the torpedo, it just sucks. It really does. And it means that now other options are gonna have to be found. Then you have the F-84Fs. Now this one's a weird one, because the F-84Fs, just like the SP2Cs, are all over the place when it comes to ranks. There are a bunch of F-84Fs in the game, such as the Italian one, then of course you have the French one, and of course you have the American one. Now, the Italian one, the French one, are now at rank 6, so they've been grounded. They're done. They're finished. The F-84F is now the lowest BR vehicle at rank 6 for some reason. And the reason for it, you know, they talk about the idea of having all of these general rules for different things and why areas are in or why things are moved around. The reason why the F-84Fs were moved up is not because of their arcade BR, okay? Like, I understand people want to believe that, and that's fine. The reason why they were moved up is literally the fact that they had an air spawn in Aerialistic, and this meant they could bomb a base and then go home without being harassed. At the same time, the F-84 IAF, they've actually forgotten to up BR it in arcade, so the Israeli one for the French is still 8-7 instead of 9-0. So technically that vehicle should be rank 5 if you're taking, you know, if you're going by the whole like setup that they've talked about, you know, the whole idea that BRs actually matter for ranks. Same with the Israeli one, where for some reason at rank 6 it's 8-7 instead of 9-0. There's no difference between them and of course the standard tech tree ones, but c'est la vie. Nobody cares about the F-84F, so of course people haven't noticed. And then for America, the only F-84F that is at rank 5, which gets an air spawn in Aerialistic, so the only one which can actually be usable compared to the rest. And that just sucks, because once again, in Aerialistic, these vehicles are the only place where they actually make sense is Aerialistic. In our arcade, they probably have a place. In ground realistic, they have, you know, their extra functions, which is quite nice for the bombs, therefore you can kind of make them work compared to previously, but their flight performance are terrible. Their general usability is terrible, and pretty much all they're good for is bombing a base. And now you've taken that away from them, and therefore they're just completely useless when it comes to the game. There's no reason to take these over something like a Sabre now, or even something like a Panther, or even a B-57. They give you nothing, so they're just done. And then you have, of course, the M4A2. This vehicle has been folded with the M4A1 and the M4 in the American tech tree, which is great for it. But the problem is, it's now rank 2. So even though it's easier to research, it now has completely lost all of its usability. At rank 2, that means that it can't do dailies or second dailies, can't do specials, can't do events, can't do anything which is the extra parts of the game like the decals. The rank 3 cutoff for so many vehicles just absolutely nukes them compared to others. And it just sucks that the M4A2 is in that position, because I know a lot of people who went to it to be able to play it and to be able to have fun. Now you can still kind of break the system by bringing an M19A1 in ground realistic and basically spawning that, or clicking to spawn it and then clicking the M4A2, but the point is you cannot just do the simple way, and if they ever remove that trick in the game and instead just stick it to what you're actually spawning, then the vehicle just becomes completely redundant for doing all of the extra parts of the game. And that just hurts. It really does. I really wish that they would stop nuking these vehicles for some vision of how these tech trees should work and how their BRs should be tied to ranks. It sucks, because right now, when it comes to my American tech tree, rank 2 is so barren because they have, grouped a bunch of things together, and now it just looks so skew-whiff and so weird. Same as the rank 4 for the aviation. The arrows are longer than any of the cards because there's so many premiums at that tier. It is absolutely ridiculous. Same with rank 2 of Britain as well. It just looks absolutely insane. I'm hoping that in the future, this vehicle and many others get back their usability for the extra content in the game, because we shouldn't just see these vehicles as grinding vehicles. You research them and you get on to the next one. They're also important with keeping people interested and being able to do events. And I know a lot of people who relied on vehicles like this to do events, and it just absolutely annoys me that some vehicles like the KV-1B, like the KV-1E, are able at the same BR to stay at higher ranks because they're premiums and because they're broken, and they are just allowed to do whatever they want in the game. That just hurts. It really does, because they are so powerful, and then you see something like an M4A2, which is a good vehicle, but it also gets nuked because of arbitrary reasons and beliefs when it comes to what vehicles should be at what ranks. When technically, as a player, you should never want ranks, because it completely limits the amount of research that you can do. And the last one is the tech tree changes for Blue Water Naval. The simple fact is, even though they've thrown in a few groups here and there for Britain and for America, it definitely does not basically make up for the fact that they've made it so now you pretty much have to research all of the rank 5 vehicles in order to get access to the rank 6 ones. And when it comes to the amount of vehicles they actually added in the update at the higher echelons, you basically just have one, the Texas. Of course, they added in the premiums that people can buy, but now this means that it is harder to get access to the Arizona, the Nevada, and the Alaska. It also means that the Bayern and the Scharnhorst are harder to get access to, the Pariskaya Kommune, the Kronstadt, and then also the Marlborough, the Hood, and the Is, the Huga, the Congo, and the Fuso are all there, along with the Dulio and of course the Lorraine, because now you have to research a specific amount of vehicles in rank 5 to get access to rank 6, and this has always been the issue with ranks. I remember when rank 8 was added for aviation, and all I could say is, look, they're just doing this to put in premiums, and then also at the same time to make it harder for you to grind these vehicles. And people were celebrating it because they were looking at it and going, oh, we're going to get new aircraft. Well, look at this Blue Water tech tree. You get one new vehicle when it comes to the whole of the tech trees, you get one new vehicle out of however many tech trees you have. What is it, 6 or 7 now? Yeah, 7, I think. So you have one new vehicle, and now they've made it harder to grind at least 10 vehicles because of this idea that ranks are something to be celebrated. Some new equipment is coming. Well, it hasn't come this time, and they literally just did it to sell you premiums. And now it's harder to grind through the tech tree for everybody. That sucks. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Brendan Quinn, Vilneus, Character Fuel, Juan the Panda, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, Bareen, Peter Grayling, Alan Hacker, Sem Alslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R, and also Lafouche for supporting the channel.